Before we begin, please hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for being part of the story. The event took place about 5 years ago. I had a best friend growing up. We grew up together, literally next door to each other, in a small suburban neighborhood. Since our houses were so close, we spent most of our childhood side by side. We climbed trees, played around the neighborhood. Naturally, we became best friends. As we got older and entered our teenage years, our interests began to shift. What had once been innocent childhood play turned into a passion for the roaring engines of motorcycles and the rush of freedom that came with high speed. Determined to live out our passion, we decided to look for jobs. We picked up any work we could find and saved up little by little. Before long, my friend and I finally had enough money to buy a used motorcycle. We wanted to ride with other teens and enjoy the freedom of the open road, just like they did. Once we got the bike, we spent countless hours modifying and customizing it, after school, on weekends, whenever we had time. We swapped out parts, fine-tuned the engine, and even replaced the exhaust to make it louder. Before long, the bike became our pride and joy. Eventually, when other teenagers saw our flashy bike, they were impressed enough to welcome us into their circle. We started hanging out with a small group of kids who were also into street racing. Late at night, we'd head out to race on the roads. Sometimes we rode through narrow, winding streets, revving the engine so loudly it echoed into the night. It felt like the whole road belonged to us, pure thrill and freedom. But then came one particular night. It was already deep into the night, and my friend and I went out racing as usual with the group. Unbeknownst to us, the police had planned a major crackdown on street racers that very night. They had already set up a sting operation in advance to trap everyone, waiting to strike. After just a couple of laps at full speed on the highway, sirens suddenly started blaring. Chaos broke out. All the teenagers panicked and scattered like cockroaches when the lights turned on, each one trying to escape in a different direction. My friend and I were among them. The police had blocked off both ends of the road, leaving no way out, and were standing ready to apprehend anyone trying to flee. There was no way out. Frozen in panic, we had no idea what to do, but then I spotted a narrow alley nearby. While the police were still busy chasing others, my friend and I made a quick decision. We swerved and rode straight into the alley. As soon as we turned in, I noticed something immediately. It was eerily silent. Not a single streetlight lit the way. The alley was pitch dark. A few houses lined the narrow path, but the whole place felt deserted. The dead silence and the roar of our bike made us feel exposed. The exhaust was too loud. We worried it would give away our position and the police could follow. We hadn't gone far before spotting a large abandoned house sitting in the middle of the lane. It was a large 2-story house that looked old and run down, clearly abandoned for years. The wooden walls were rotting, eaten through by termites. The window frames sagged, glass panes cracked and coated in thick dust. The front door was slightly ajar, as if it had been nudged open by the wind, almost like it was inviting us in. I started slowing the bike down. My friend immediately asked,
"Are you sure you want to hide in there?"
I glanced at him and replied, "We have to. If we stay out here, we're definitely getting caught." With that, I shut off the engine. Together, we quietly pushed the bike into the house. Our plan was simple: stay quiet, wait until the cops were gone, then slip back out. The moment we opened the door and stepped inside, a strong, musty smell of dust and dampness hit us instantly. The wooden floor creaked loudly beneath our feet with every step. In front of us was a large central hall, which, judging by the layout, must have once been a living room. Some old furniture remained, abandoned and forgotten. There were a few aged chairs, a round wooden table in the center, and a fabric sofa stained and covered in patches of mold. We didn't move around much. Instead, we quietly sat in a corner of the room, trying to wait things out and stay out of sight from any patrolling officers. But it wasn't long before the atmosphere in the house began to shift. Strange noises echoed throughout the place, some from upstairs, others from deeper inside the first floor. Tapping, creaking, and soft knocks made us turn our heads repeatedly, searching for the source. But nothing appeared out of the ordinary. We figured it might be rats, or small animals hiding inside, or maybe just the old wooden structure settling with age. But as more time passed, an unnatural chill began to creep through the air. Despite it being the middle of summer, the temperature steadily dropped, and a cold we couldn't explain settled in. While we were talking, my friend suddenly jolted upright, startled by something he saw. His reaction startled me, and I immediately turned to follow his gaze. What I saw froze me in place. At the front door, right where we had entered, stood a woman. She wore a long, faded red nightgown. Her face and skin were pale white. Her long black hair hung down to her waist. She stood completely still, her face frozen in a chilling smile. But what horrified us most was that her feet weren't touching the floor. She was hovering slightly above it. My friend was the first to speak, his voice trembling as he said,
Did you see that? She's floating in the air.
I didn't answer. I just grabbed his arm tightly, frantically scanning for a way out. But the only visible exit was where the woman was standing. With no other options, we bolted upstairs, hoping to find a window or another escape route on the second floor. We sprinted up the stairs without hesitation. The second floor was just as decayed, wooden planks broken and splintered across the floor. 3 or 4 doors lined the hallway side by side. The room directly across from the staircase had its door wide open. We rushed toward it without thinking, but as we neared and looked inside, we were horrified even more. In the middle of the room was the same woman in the red nightgown, but this time she was hanging from the ceiling by the neck, her body swaying slightly. She stared directly at us, and her mouth began stretching into an unnaturally wide grin, so wide it nearly reached her ears. Panic took over. My friend ran to the nearby window, shoved it open, and leapt out without a second thought. I followed instinctively, jumping after him, not even knowing what was outside. The only thing on our minds was to get away. We landed on the roof of a small kitchen extension at the back of the house, but the tiled roof couldn't hold our weight. It gave in immediately. We crashed through and fell into the kitchen below with a loud bang. There was no time to feel pain. We scrambled up and ran straight for the back door. Once outside, we jumped on our parked motorcycle, started it, and sped away from that haunted house at full throttle. In the silence and darkness of the alley, the roar of our motorcycle echoed loudly. We finally felt some relief, thinking we had escaped that terrifying nightmare. But just as we reached the main road at the end of the alley, a group of police officers was already there, waiting. They shined their flashlights straight at us, and just as expected, the 2 of us were arrested on the spot. Strangely, part of me felt relief. Seeing the officers gave us a sense of safety, like maybe we were back in the real world. We were taken to the police station. While we waited for our parents, one officer noticed how shaken we were and said,
Hey, relax. We'll let you go home once your parents come.
But we weren't shaking because we got caught. We were trembling with fear. Sensing that something else was going on, the officer asked again, more seriously this time, what had happened, what had made us look so terrified. We couldn't hold it in any longer. Still shaking, we told him everything, the entire horrifying experience. After hearing our story, the officer said,
You boys have no idea. That house is even scarier than you think. It has a dark history.
He went on to explain that decades ago, the house belonged to a woman who lived there alone. People believed she suffered from depression due to loneliness, and one night, she took her own life by hanging. Since then, the house had been left abandoned. No one dared to live there again, as rumors spread that the spirit of the woman who hanged herself still haunted the place. People living nearby often reported strange things when passing through the alley late at night. Cries of pain, soft sobbing, or dark figures moving behind the windows. That's why the road had long been avoided. Hearing all this from the police gave my friend and me even worse chills. We had never imagined that just going out for a late-night motorcycle ride would completely change our lives forever. Looking back, the reason the woman we saw appeared to be floating above the floor was that, at the time of her death, her body had been hanging in the air and had never touched the ground. And while we were hiding, We never heard any police pass by, which means they never bothered to check the alley we entered, probably because they already knew the place was haunted and were too afraid to go in. Even now, it still gives me goosebumps